Here's my video for the Stravinsky questions. So the first question is, what is the story of the ballet? So the ballet features this prince named Prince Ivan. We start off with him hunting at night, and he comes across this firebird, and he captures her and is about to kill her, but the firebird pleads for her life, and Ivan decides to spare it, and as a thank you, the firebird gives Ivan a feather of hers, which he can use to summon her at any point. Later on, you see that Ivan comes across these 13 princesses who are unfortunately under a spell of an evil sorcerer. But Ivan sees one of the princesses and instantly falls in love with her. So he decides the following day that he's going to confront the sorcerer, and he's going to save these princesses. So he goes and uses the feather that he was given to summon the firebird. And when the firebird summons, she casts a spell over the sorcerer and his servants, which force them into a dance, which is known as the Infernal Dance. And after this happens, they fall asleep. And when they fall asleep, Ivan is directed towards this tree stump by the firebird, and the tree stump is holding this magic egg, which also holds the spell that the princesses are under. Prince Ivan destroys the egg, which releases the spell, and the princesses are no longer under this spell, and they are released, and Prince Ivan ends up marrying the princess he fell in love with. For the second question, does the music portray the story of the ballet? I would say yes. I would say the ballet does a very good job of portraying the moods. I think Stravinsky does a very good job of when different characters come in, where if the sorcerer is coming in, it's very dissonant, it's very angular, it's very offsetting. And you kind of also see that in the movement, where whenever the sorcerer's in, he's doing very angular and non-conventional ballet movements, whereas when you see the firebird and the prince interacting, the mood is changed to almost a romantic feeling, where it's very legato phrases, and the interactions between the prince and the firebird are very more conventional ballet movements. It's more long stretched movements, and then I think the best portrayed scenes are when the princesses are dancing, because it's very dainty, and when I think princesses, I think very, very dainty. And it's always with mallets or flutes being very, very light, doing maybe these little staccato passages, or maybe just little flourishes that make it seem like this magical princess-like mood. So yes, I do agree that the music does portray the story of the ballet very well. For question 3, what measures were the most challenging? For me, as a trumpet player, I would say the most challenging was the beginning of the Infernal Dance. It's very soloistic. It's very exposed, and it's also very high, which on a trumpet, that basically means that you have a very high chance of fracking the note. Even if you have the right setting, you have the right embouchure, you need to have a very good ear and practice it a lot to the point where you don't miss it. And that was the toughest part of that excerpt, is is because of how easy it is just to miss a note, even though you have everything set. You have taken in enough air, your embouchure's set correctly. You could still miss it just because of how high the range is and how weird the intervals are. And the other difficult part is that it's very hard to get in tune. I was having to use alternate fingerings, which made the passage even harder because I'm using unconventional fingerings to do these passages, which in the end it paid off because it sounded a lot better, but it made it even more difficult. And for the final question, what part of the piece did I find the most interesting? I actually have a couple for this one. I found in the Infernal Dance, I found was the most interesting because when I was a kid, I was fascinated by the Fantasia movies, and specifically Fantasia 2000. And in Fantasia 2000, they used the Infernal Dance in one of their scenes, which in this scene, it's this kind of almost like a piece of life is running away from this chaotic world, and volcanoes are exploding. But I find it very intriguing because I almost tie it to the ballet because it's this piece of life that's trying to stay alive while all this chaos is going, and it's almost like in the ballet where the Firebird is trying to fight off the evil sorcerer, while in Fantasia it's this piece of life trying to stay alive, even though there's all this chaos going on. And then I also just find that the ending to be one of the most beautiful excerpts or passages that I've ever come across, just because it's very triumphant, and I am a huge fan of anything that is triumphant and just big brass sound. So those are my two examples of what I found were the most interesting parts to the piece, and those are my answers for the questions. Thank you.